Welcome to Cade Sport Racing on a Saturday. Looks like we've got a small group out today, so it should be interesting on the pack dynamics. Could give someone who wants to do a long break an advantage, but we're looking forward to, we got a couple of the heavyweights out. I would be looking at Peter and Sebastian to top the charts today, but also I think we've seen Kay sort of coming into her own with regards to the racing, Kay Thompson. So that'll be interesting. Oh, we've got Carl here and Ben. So actually, it's going to be a very interesting day. We got a lot of the heavyweights out, and I would expect those four to be going head to head. Homer's been doing very well as of late. So CCC, maybe we'll have some team tactics. I understand that another heavyweight, Timothy, is stuck on a train, so that might put CCC, advantage CCC versus Hive, because Ben looks to be on his own. But Timothy may join late, and if he does, what may happen is that he will ride for Ben to try and get Ben the overall points today. We've got the same four events as we do on Tuesday and Thursday. So a lot of the practice, I'm sure, is coming up with all the racers, and so they're used to these roads. Probably nobody will go down on the couple of tight corners before the finish on Lake Bend. On Thursday, the top four riders all augured in, following what I call the Blue Angels effect, following the top rider into the corner too quickly, and they all crashed, and that gave Peter Castro the ability to sort of pass them all. Now Timothy did catch him at the line at the very last moment, 9 1/1000ths of a difference. Peter, I think, is still reviewing the video on that because I think he was counting those chickens. But we'll see how he does today in the race as well. He definitely was cool, calm, and collected, the CCC name, on Thursday, and shot by everybody who had crashed in that particular corner. Then we have the technical course, which is Cade Kart Aurora, which is basically a track course. It's on an indoor kart racing course. They're very fun. They're very technical, and it's all about riding your own race. They're typically not trying to stay with the pack as it would be on the first race or the third race, which is Apex Mountains. Apex Mountains basically has no technical turns on it, so you can sort of go all out. This is about drafting and pack dynamics and pace lines, and if you can hold a break. Carl's been known to go for some solos. He does a lot of resting at the back, and then picks his moment and goes out front and puts the hurt on the group. So we'll see how that goes. And here we go with the first race. We're off. Everybody is transparent at the beginning, and everybody is on the start line, so everybody has the same chance. And what I've been noticing is the power has been coming down. Because of the dynamics on Cade Sport, what we're seeing is that people are starting to learn that, these big, huge starts that you see on other virtual cycling platforms just don't really pay off for you here. And so what you sort of see people doing is just sort of a normal standard start that you would see outdoors is starting to develop, and that's starting to become the culture. And we see everybody here forming up into a line. We've got Ben on the front. He's putting out basically FTP watts here. FTP on equalized watts is 421, so it's sort of easy to know where everybody is going. Pack looks very good here. We've got Mark out here who abandoned me on the call today, commentary, because he wanted to ride. So I'm going to be giving him a hard time throughout the day, and also providing some coaching to him that he might not want, but since I'm the only commentator, I will take that latitude as well. Here we see Mark on his bike, a nice red jersey there, some great tats as well. And we're going to make him smile, and we'll see how much he suffers through the day. But if he starts to fall off the back, I'm going to be giving him a hard time. So make sure you're in the pack and you're getting a good draft, Mark, and that you're paying attention to how many watts you're putting out if there's somebody in front of you as well. Save that energy for a little bit later in the race. So we're about a kilometer in. We've got a nice peloton formed here. We can see quite a few yellow jerseys there, so advantage CCC as well. I wonder today, I think Kay had a lot left on Thursday, so it'll be interesting to see what Kay does today. Is she working for the team? Is the team going to work for her? What is Ben going to do? Ben's a very powerful rider. That being said, when it comes to endurance, I don't think there's anybody that rides as much as Homer. And that's saying something, because Jeff Rooney and some other people do 24-hour events, but Homer is just riding a ton on the platform, and we even see it in our overall metrics. We've got Peter here in his door frame, on his rollers. He says he prefers the non-technical events. Hey, Peter. And I'm sure that's true, but he's getting better and better on the technical events, I must say, even on his rollers. Now we've got someone going to the front here. Looks to me, is that Mark? Moving to the front. Okay, so Mark is putting in a big attack here. So much for the save your energy. He's going to see if he can draw out the peloton into a long line here with the realistic drafting techniques. We got a couple of people off to the side. We've got Kopse coming up from Slovenia, I think it is, and he's going to try and bridge the gap here. But everybody's kind of coming along with him. Now, Mark is holding definitely a high VO2 max kind of effort at 639 watts. He won't be able to maintain that very long, and he's already starting to enter the hurt locker. The heart rate that you see there is an equalized heart rate. Kopse has an equalized heart rate in the hurt locker as well. Peter comes to say, okay, I saved a little bit. You guys are in the hurt locker. I'm not. I've got a little bit left to give. And again, he's holding that sort of 600 watt range, which is definitely going to be sort of in the high VO2 max range, maybe even a little bit above. And it's going to be hard to maintain that effort. But what he's going to look to do is hopefully get an effort and then settle in maybe in the 500 watt range and just make everybody else work. Now you see behind, these are great pack dynamics, because you see the pack has entered into a line. We don't even need to look at the watts. What we will note is that everybody here is beginning to suffer. If we look at all the equalized heart rates, we see they're all into the 180 range. It looks like Kay's heart rate monitor is suffering one of those what I call half glitches, where it seems to report half of what your actual heart rate is. So I would assume she's also pretty high. Carl using his standard tactics at the back, saving energy, getting the big draft, and not burning his legs, not burning his glycogen stores. But Peter is really maintaining a great effort. Now, it is possible for Peter to maintain this sort of effort on this duration of a course for the whole time. And what we'll see here is he's got about a 2-second gap. He's got to watch the corners here as he comes through the end, but I think they're not going fast enough for that to be. Oh, nope, it was definitely a worry. So I called that out, and that's unfortunate for Peter. All he had to do there is probably back off the power, maybe slow down a little bit. We all sort of enjoy the crashes, but that one was a little bit unfortunate. So I'm not too fond of that particular crash. There, I wish he made it through that particular corner. But now we see Sebastian attacking off the front, using a razor's edge once he got by all the tough corners. Pedro goes down in a corner that I wasn't even aware was that tight a corner. So maybe doing a big effort there, or on the brakes. You got to stay off the brakes, and you have to be careful of big accelerations in the corner. We've got Kopse here. We've got Pedro here. And we've got Carl, of course, and now we've got Homer. Kay's right there. So I think everybody ought to watch out for Homer and Kay today. Homer goes off the front and says, you know what, it's unfortunate that Peter went down for the CCC team, but I'm willing to pick up the mantle. And as long as Kay gets on here, now she's a little bit off the back, but as long as she can close that gap, I think it's definitely advantage CCC, because everybody else is going to have to chase here. This could be setting up for Kay to win the day, win this activity, this event out of the playlist for sure. So definitely advantage CCC here on the team tactics. We've got Mark in the front group. He's doing very well. Homer's entering the hurt locker. Mark will be entering the hurt locker here. Kopse saving his energy, 169. I look to favor him a little bit for the win on this course, but he is not as used to the cornering, and he could easily make a mistake in those last couple of corners. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But maybe as long as he shifts his paradigm to outdoor riding versus what happens on other virtual cycling platforms, and he sees those corners coming up, and he slows down, sort of coasts through those corners, maybe some slight braking before the corners is usually all that's needed here on this course, he should have an excellent chance. Now, of course, Homer's saying, no, he's not even going to be close to me. I'm going to maintain my advantage. I've got a couple of seconds on the group here with 2.5 kilometers to go. As I had mentioned, Homer is a tremendous endurance rider, and so this isn't going to be hard for him to maintain effort. And he's picking it up here. Oh, Pedro makes a huge burst to come up and make the bridge. Now, what will Homer do? Will Homer respond? Yes, Homer's responding. And you see the whole group sort of coming back together. We see Kopse moving up here. And what will he do? Will he go right on by? Nope. It looks like he's bridged the gap. And so he's going to sort of settle in. 2 kilometers to go. Everybody's still within striking power. We've got Carl also at sort of the back of this group. We've got Ben at the back of this group. We've got Kay at the back of this group. Any one of these players can make a move. Now, the interesting thing about corners on CadeSport is you can't just save your bridging till the end, because if you bridge during one of those corners because you think you're going to get there right before the line, then what you do is you have the danger of going down. So you want to probably bridge earlier than you might otherwise. And sure enough, Carl says, you know what, I've got that. And I'm going to drop my razor's edge, which will definitely make it easy for me to sort of bridge up to the group here. And he goes right by the group and shoots on past. It looks like Kopse is there responding as well. So this will be very interesting. And we've got Homer, who's still got a razor's edge. And so he's fighting to get back up there, but he's in the hurt locker. We see Igor's heart rate go to 209. That means this is the hardest he's ever worked on the platform. We've got Ben covering Homer. 1 kilometer to go. So we're going to hit those corners that can catch some people out here very shortly. So, boy, we've got to really pay attention to the skill here, and then we look to be setting up for a sprint. So got to get through the 2 corners before you go for the hard sprint. Doesn't leave very much time for the hard sprint. And sure enough, we've got the top 4. Carl, Homer, Ben, Kopse here with a chance to take the overall. Sorry, I'm getting the playlists and just one event confused. But to take the event, the first event of the day, it's a 1.5 times multiplier. Okay, this is the corner coming up that will catch a lot of people out. We see Ben putting in, lowering his watts, and everybody wants to sort of coast through these corners. And we'll see if it catches anybody out. And it did catch Kopse out, which was to be expected. He doesn't have the experience on the platform. Ben drops the razor's edge, but maybe a little bit early. How is he going to get through that last corner? Is he going to hit the brakes? And boom, he overcooks it. Definitely had the win. And look at that. Carl shows you how it's done. Get through the corner, then drop the power up. Fantastic job, Carl. Fantastic job, Homer. Bennett was worth a try. And Kopse, a little bit more experience needed on those corners. Mark comes across the line in a nice position. So great racing by Mark. I'll try and forgive the abandonment of me on the commentator stand, but that looked really, really good. Fantastic racing by everybody in that race. Okay, we're going to pause here a little bit as we update some of the overall scores for the points today. excellent job by Pedro finishing third. Pedro's improving his skills all the time. I'm sure Ben is a little bit disappointed in that crash in the last corner. Mark rounds out the top 5. I think that's one of the best finishes by Mark. Overall, we've got Kopse in 6th, and he looked to be setting up for the win. So Kay did finish in 7th. This is a 1.5 times multiplier, so we'll get some of that up here. Sebastian down in 8th. That's a little bit of a surprise. Wonder if Sebastian's a little bit fatigued. I didn't see him go down anywhere. He's a good technical rider, so I wouldn't have expected him to go down anywhere as well. So I didn't see Vanessa out there. So I wonder if she's had a mechanical or where she's sitting overall as well. So here we see the live results in terms of the points. Again, first event is a 1.5 multiplier. Second event is a 1. Third event is a 2 times multiplier, double points. That will probably decide the overall for the playlist today. And the fourth event is a technical course as well. And maybe that will make life interesting if we're close on the overall still. And I think we're going to have some shakeups in the overall due to what happened there in the first race. So kind of obviously we've got to favor Carl for the overall now, finishing first in that event. But I also like Homer. Homer's been really coming up on the skills, and he's not going down on these technical courses. Now, Carl does very well, too, so it'll be interesting to see in this technical if Homer can either stay with Carl or maybe get past him at the front and even out the points. I also would favor Igor and Homer and Ben all to have a chance on the double points. Okay, we're off here. Sebastian, very good at taking off. Oh, he uses the corner caper early on, so he's going to blast through these corners, and if he gets the timing right, should get a big lead. Carl does the same. Homer does the same. And we see them, Carl and Sebastian together. Homer a bit further back. I think he used it a bit later. Oh, big skid there by Sebastian, but he saves it. You can turn into the skid on CadeSport if you start a skid, but you turn into it, you can save it before the end. And Sebastian definitely looked to do that there. Otherwise, he just came out of the corner at just the right time. But definitely maximizing the speed through that corner. And we see Carl right here on the inside, saving a little bit of time on the inside. So we see a couple of heavyweights here on the technical skill. And, oh, Carl goes down. So that's a big surprise. Now that will give Peter and Pedro a chance to come back. Looks like Peter's within striking distance of Carl. And sure enough, there we see Peter. And it looks like Sebastian might have gone down as well. So that's a little bit unfortunate, because sometimes when you get that advantage, you can just be more conservative. But what we see here is we've got Peter. And as I said, Peter's been getting much better at the technical. And to be here in third position is excellent. And what we'll see is we've got a couple of riders. We've got some riders who are sort of holograms. They're transparent. And Sebastian there on the skid again. So it looks like Sebastian is really pushing it. And Carl seems to just have this dialed in. So maybe a little bit of a skid there, but maybe he was just moving over for the corner. We see Sebastian getting back on Carl's wheel. 1.3 kilometers to go. We're about halfway through this particular race. Peter a little bit further back, holding third position. I would say the winner is definitely going to come from these three, and it looks like Peter is playing a little bit more conservative here, just maintaining his position, just maintaining his rhythm on the rollers. You can see here that the riders don't tend to put out big watts on these races. The more technical races actually give you a little bit of time for your your legs to recover, not so much on the mental side. These are high focus events. And we see, okay, here we see Pedro trying to catch up, and he just runs out of time. And that's what happens so often. If he makes it through that corner and he hits the brakes, he probably really moves up the rankings. Okay, we've got Peter a little bit further back. Looks to be content with third. That looks to be very secure. On the last lap, Sebastian and Carl going toe-to-toe. We see Sebastian there taking the inside line, and great apex turns. Oh, I think he just tried to accelerate a little too soon out of that particular corner, and that will free up Carl for the win here on Cade Kart Aurora. About a half a kilometer to go, and as long as Carl doesn't go down, and as I say that, I think Carl went down. So big mistake there by Carl. Not sure what caused that. Probably just overcooking it a little bit. He's really used to. Oh, and again, I think Sebastian might be accelerating too quickly out of the corner. He was definitely there on Carl's back wheel, but not much time left. It's hard to get by people here. Usually you're going to take the inside line to get by somebody, but you also risk, if you start a skid and you're on the inside line and there's a rider to your outside, you will crash immediately. Now this is interesting. So that crash by Sebastian, Steady Eddie here, Peter Castro, gets by Sebastian, and as so often happens, once you go down and you see Sebastian crash there again, it becomes a domino effect. You're trying to make up for your lost time, and as you do that, you just make more mistakes. So the best thing to do is, now this is easier said than done, just to put crashes behind you and forget about them and just continue to ride the race. A great win there by... Oh, this is interesting. So Peter had a power-up save there, a corner caper. He comes across second. Carl wins the day, wins the event. Sebastian comes in third. Peter had a power-up, so he might have been able to catch Sebastian regardless. So he probably had second, good chance at second anyway there. We see Pedro coming across here in fourth position. Erhan coming across in a top 5 position. That's fantastic. I think that's one of the better finishes for Erhan as well. He's been on the platform for a long time, and definitely his skill levels are coming up. So Carl is definitely in the driver's seat for the day. Peter is closing in atop the leaderboard. The next race will, for the overall for the day, the points, we do points for the overall, and we'll see what those look like here just in a bit. And I'm going to take a little bit of a pause here as we update the stats, and then we'll talk about those, update the results. Okay, I've updated the points as we get set for sort of the queen stage of the day, Apex Mountain and the hilly road. We see that Carl has a big advantage here. Pedro in second, but Homer only half a point behind him. Ben at 26.5, and then Peter Castro at 24.5. That first race where he went down in one of those corners cost him significantly. That being said, double points on Apex Mountains, so these points could change dramatically, but some people have got to get in front of Carl, and they've got to put some distance between some riders in between, Carl and themselves at the end. Looks like Homer's best positioned from a team perspective. There's 3 members out for CCC to get some gaps in there and get Homer to the top and give a challenge to Carl. We're off here at the start. We see Kay Thompson going to the front, and so maybe there is. But again, a much more sedate start than we're used to on other virtual cycling platforms, because this is just basically more real. And what you can see is you're going to be able to sort of catch on to this group, get the peloton effect. And we've got a long way to go, 15 kilometers in this event. Again, this won't be any technical issues, so this will all be tactical. What are the teams going to do? When are they going to try to put the pressure on the peloton? As you can see, the peloton sort of spread out across the road. It means we don't even have to look at the watts. The watts won't be too terribly high because of that effect. So the riders as well as the viewers here, when this is sort of happening, where we start to sort of stretch out across the road, or we're 3 abreast here, then we know that the power isn't very significant on the front. To give you an idea, if someone on the front is putting out near FTP, let's say like 400 watts, someone on the back, and you see Carl in his standard position there, will be putting out like 200 watts. And so they're saving a tremendous amount of energy as well. Now we've got Dave Morrison from West London on the front. Don't forget about the West London event coming up on Wednesday. It's one of the things that we'll be featuring. You might see some advertising around the West London events, as well as some of our other events that we're hosting. So we look forward to that West London event on Wednesday. Okay, we've got Pedro and Dave sort of at the front here, just holding in that FTP range. I find this so interesting, because you can know what everybody's FTP is, because it's F421 for everybody. It's interesting to me how often the front of these packs are sort of holding FTP, and at some point you'd expect that to be a little bit higher, and I'm sure that it will be as other people in the group are sort of in that FTP zone. Now back here we see Carl, and you can see his watts are down in the 200s. So that's a massive savings, and the longer everybody sort of lets Carl sit here at the back. Oh, we see an attack off the left as I say that, and none other than Peter Castro. He says, hey, there's no technical corners here. I'm not going to go down in any of those corners on this course. And huge power being put out, about up at 800 watts. Immediately gets a 3-second gap. So now everybody's going to, looks like Pedro's responding from the pack looking to bridge, but everybody else is sort of looking at everybody. And as I say that, Copsley says, you know what, this looks like the break of the day, and I'm going to go ahead and do the bridge. Now, if Copse and Pedro get together on this, what's going to happen is that's going to form a big group at the front that is going to be very hard to chase down. You've got some really strong riders here. We see maybe Copse, is he looking to sort of ride Pedro's wheel, or is he looking to go by him? Back in the back, you've got Mark saying, I'm going to try and bring the whole group back together. So he's holding just over 500 watts on the front of the pack. We see Kay marking him very well. This is what you would expect out of team members. She's not going to help him, but she's definitely going to mark him. And we see Sebastian bringing that group together. And they're all sort of closing in on Pedro and Copse. Copse says, you know what, I'm going to get around Pedro. I'm going to push hard. I'm looking to work with Peter so that we can stay away. Probably Peter will wait for him maybe a little bit. It doesn't look like Peter's, at 500 watts, I wouldn't call that waiting, but they're together. Now, I expect these guys to work together. Peter should give Copse a little time to recover, get his heart rate down, which is definitely in the hurt locker. Peter's in the hurt locker as well. But then Copse can go to the front, and they can take turns pulling. Now, in a smaller group like this, it's longer pulls. And so when you've only got 2 people, you're probably going to pull maybe for 2 minutes, right? And you're really going to burn yourself a little bit. And we see Peter here sort of getting off the front, and Igor probably learning to steer a little bit as well. But he's also maybe not in the mood just yet to take pulls at the front. But typically what you'll see in these sorts of groups is the smaller the group, the longer the pulls. The larger the group, the shorter the pulls. And so in larger groups, probably you want the pulls to be 30 to 45 seconds. And then, of course, you're really putting the hammer down because at the back they're getting the big draft while also at the front they're putting in the big ones. Now, when you're taking longer pulls, obviously you're not going to max out the power like that because you'll just blow up. So you're going to do lower power but longer pulls in those situations. Now we've got the pack here. This is fantastic. Great tactics by Cool, Calm, and Collected, CCC. They're sort of just going on the front. They're going at a pace sort of below FTP, and everybody else has got to go around them and make a big effort. Now, every second that goes by, as an example here, we've got Carl in the back, but every second that goes by, the leaders, which has got a CCC rider in it, extend off the front. So this is a great move by Kopse and Peter Castro. We see that maybe Sebastian has noted the danger, and he's going to get in front of the CCC riders who are sort of slow pedaling, if you will, and the CCC riders will go to the back, and this sets them up for the standard cycling tactic of, okay, you guys pull us all back, and when you do, if we catch that group, we're going to be well rested and we're going to attack you. Now, Mark's got to watch this gap that he's falling off here on the back, and he's just got to, that's as in outdoor riding, the amount of gap that you have there really changes your drafting dynamics, and you really have to put out a lot more energy just by a 2 bike length difference makes that large. And I think is this Pedro? I think this is Pedro off the back. Maybe burnt up his legs a little bit today, and is struggling. But he's got to just sort of all-out sprint and catch the back of that, and then hope to stay on that. Now, I don't know what the gap is. It looks like maybe 5 seconds. And yep, 5 seconds. So good guess. Just look by distance, around about 5 seconds. Now, you have true gaps here on CadeSport. These gaps are taken by time beacons. So it's not like some of the other platforms where that's based on distance and it changes if you're going uphill or downhill, and you have to try and factor that all in. These are true time gaps. Doesn't matter if you're going uphill or downhill because it's about the time you pass a timing beacon. And so the time is accurate timing. Now we've got Vanessa going to the front here. It looks like she's putting in some big watts and trying to catch this group. She's got Kay following her. Maybe Vanessa and Kay will work together to try and close this gap because it's coming down quite dramatically here. And it looks like Peter and Igor are off the gas. And maybe they weren't working that well to get together. And maybe it's a steering thing. Kopse getting used to the steering. But maybe he wasn't too interested in pulling at that point, or maybe they just decided with 8 kilometers to go, I'm not sure we want to stay out here and work quite that hard. So it looks like the group is coming back together. Now this is important. Pedro's off the back by about 9 seconds. It's going to be very hard for him to close down, especially he's in the hurt locker. Okay, Kopse, former pro rider, is putting in a big effort here, and he says, "No, I know how to suffer. I'm a good bike rider, so I know how to suffer, and I'm going to go off the front here and see who can chase me down." We see that Kay moves to the front here of the group, doing fantastic work for the team, and it looks like she's going to try and at least hold the distance. Now, maybe they're kind of thinking, you know what, we're going to leave Kopse out here to cook a little bit, and then we'll pull him back. Um, and it looks to me like Kay's trying to maintain a sort of pace that everybody else can follow. And so it'll be interesting to see how long she does that, or at what point she says, you know what, I should bridge across to Copse and work with Copse and see what we can do in the final sprint. Now, I don't know Kay's sprinting ability, so maybe she's thinking she doesn't want to work with Copse because it would be difficult for her to win the sprint. But a top 2 finish on a double points map would be great for Kay as well. Now we see Ben here saying, I'm going to go ahead and look to bridge, but Ben is at 198. I mean, he's totally in the hurt locker here. Everybody, Mark is in the hurt locker, coming back together. Now, what's interesting here is you see we're seeing that line effect in the drafting in the peloton. Now, what really needs to happen here if they're going to catch Copse is at 12 seconds, because he's really putting in a nice effort here, is they're going to have to do a pace line, right? And we're going to have to see what happens. Now, we know that a little bit equalization might be favoring Copse at the moment, because we see him at 208 on his heart rate. That means he's working harder than he ever has before on CadeSport. And CadeSport's equalization system will be correcting any equalization in real time. So the longer that Copse is out front, the more the system will adjust for his understanding what his true power really is, and that advantage will dissipate. But you sort of got to keep Copse close, and I think that's going to be hard with 6 kilometers to go. Now, that being said, for the overall, it starts to become very interesting. So you've got Carl going off the front here. He doesn't have to worry too much about Copse for the overall of the day, because Copse's had a lot of crashes, right? But what he does have to do is pay attention to Pedro and Homer, who are in second and third position, but basically the same number of points behind. So it'll be interesting to see if CCC can play into that. I think Pedro's off the back, maybe overcooked it a little bit in the beginning of this race and the first race. So I don't think Carl has to worry too much about Pedro at the moment. So it's game on Homer. We've got Peter in this group. We've got Kay in this group, are very close. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do as a team to sort of put the hurt on Carl. They've got about 5.5 kilometers to do so. We see Sebastian on the front here. We see that Copse's power is dropping, and Sebastian's like, now Copse's got a good 17-second lead here. That's not quite enough with 5 kilometers to go. Generally, the rule is 10 seconds per kilometer. The group can bring back on the break. Now we have a smaller peloton here today, so I would say maybe 5 seconds per kilometer is what they can bring back, but they have to be pretty coordinated in order to be able to do that. So right now I don't see that amount of coordination, so maybe 2 or 3 seconds per kilometer would be the best that the group could hope for to bring back on Copse, and that would put this right at something that might come back together towards the line, but it's unlikely. I think Copse has made a good move here and can look to stay away. But we'll follow that. Now what you see is you got a couple riders off the front here. You've got Carl and Sebastian. And this is a great tactic by Carl. So what he's basically said is, I'm not going to wait for CCC, the team, to throw down on me. I'm going to throw down on them and look to get them to respond, and then hopefully I can maintain my position. Now, this is a high risk, high reward tactic by Carl, because if Kay and Peter and Homer, looks like Homer's off the back, so Homer, I wouldn't be surprised. No, I think Homer did a 100-mile ride yesterday, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if Homer is suffering from a lot of fatigue, which you really see in the equalized events. If you're fatigued, and by the way, I think this is a great thing for training. if you're training, I think Cade Sport's really good because it'll show you how fatigued you are, how fresh you are, because being fresh or fatigued makes a huge difference in equalized events. And I think that can really help athletes perceive how important freshness and fatigue is, because I think sometimes or often athletes are sort of type A personalities, and more is better, and certainly more isn't always better. Sometimes better is just to rest and get your freshness back, and then when you do an event like this, you can really put out your best effort, which is actually better training than sort of putting out half efforts. That's a little bit exaggerated, but sub-optimal, sub-maximal efforts usually aren't the best training in that regards. So you see that. Now, as I was saying, sort of 2 or 3 seconds per kilometer, you see Carl putting out 500 watts here. Kopse is really upping his effort, and this is a great thing about equalization. So now we've got 6 seconds with 3 kilometers. That's only 2 seconds per kilometer. So Carl and Sebastian definitely within striking distance. Ben is really upping the power, and I like what Kay's doing here. Kay's just covering. I think we might be in for a surprise win by Kay on Apex Mountains. So something to watch for there. Great shot here with the sun setting in the background. Love the graphics on Cade Sport and what we do with the with the lighting. Fantastic job by the team there. So now we have Sebastian taking a turn. So Sebastian and Carl definitely working together. So that will put Kay into the hurt locker to have to cover that on her own. And I would say with 2 kilometers to go, it's now or never, Kay. So I hope to see a great big effort from you, and maybe you can close that down. Hopefully you weren't on those 100-mile rides with Homer, but I know that that's also possible as well. Kay, you've got to probably maintain something in the 550 watts to bring this back. Okay, now we got Carl to the front here. They have a bridge to Kopse. And I have to say that I'm impressed by all the new equalization algorithms on Cade Sport. They happen in real time, and now there's only the first pass that happens in real time. This evening there will be a deep dive analysis on the numbers, and everybody's curves will be adjusted. Probably mostly Kopse's curve will be adjusted as the system now understands how he rides better. And so he'll see a little bit of a difference in the next one. Sebastian and Carl pretty well equalized all out here, so the system understands them well. Now Sebastian is bringing back Carl, and we're setting up for a big sprint here. And Igor stays with these three. Just a little over a kilometer to go. Will someone go from far out? Will someone wait till 500 meters, 400 meters? Who will get the jump? Sebastian goes to the front and he cools it down a little bit, setting up maybe for the sprint. Kopse, as I said, a former professional rider, and he is definitely going to have the advantage. Now this is interesting. This probably won't be like this in the closing sprint, but you see right there, Kopse was boxed in. Okay, we've got Carl going from big distance, putting out over 1,000 watts. Kopse is going to respond here. He's going to put out 1,100 equalized watts, and so this will be very interesting. 500 meters to the close. Maybe Kopse is fading a little bit. Or maybe he's just really good at gauging his sprint, but he's got to go big now with 300 meters left. The only way, don't worry about those corners, Kopse. Just go all out here. Carl says, nope, I've got this covered. Sebastian's got that covered. And I think Kopse will probably come across in second position. but I think he's definitely in the hurt locker. Sort of a maximal effort. Great job by Carl there. Great riding by Kopse off the front to finish second. A little bit unfortunate that he wasn't able to finish first. Sebastian doing some great work. And we've got Kay, who almost caught him for the final podium position, but great top 4 position by Kay there. And then somebody else came across the line. I think it was Ben. Yep. And then we've got Dave Morrison finishing 6th or 7th there. I think it was 6th, and Mark in 7th. Vanessa in 8th. So some great riding there. Double points. But it pretty much looks like Carl's made the day. I think he's got the day locked up. He's already got the hat trick. We've got Kopse in 2nd, so he'll jump up the leaderboard as well. And then we've got Sebastian, Mr. Consistent, finishing 3rd. So he'll jump into 3rd overall. Actually, this is interesting. Kopse and Sebastian are tied at 50.3 points. And so that'll be down to the last technical event of the day. Definitely advantage Sebastian with his higher experience as well. Kate jumps into 4th overall. And then let me just, I'm going to pause here while I update some of these numbers, which this is becoming automatic. But for today, I've got to sort of enter the finishing positions. Got Dave Morrison in 6th. Mark in 7th. So given all the work that Mark was doing in some of the earlier events, that's a good finish. We've got Vanessa in 8th. Peter Castro in 9th, probably fading from some of his work out in the front before. And Homer Thompson rounds out the top 10. Ben is very close as well at 46.5 points overall. So here's how the points. Basically, nobody. I think Carl doesn't even need to ride the last race to win the overall today. I'm sure he will. He's probably looking for the clean sweep and taking all 4 events, and he definitely has that. I think Sebastian hopefully will stand in his way of a clean sweep in the final technical event. We've got Kopse in 2nd. Again, I think it's going to be difficult for him without the experience to beat out Sebastian for 2nd overall today. So advantage Seb the Beast there. We've got Ben in 46.5. Ben can be a good technical rider, and so it'll be interesting to see if he can sort of get onto the podium. Homer, as I said, has been really good technically lately, coming into his own technically. And this is a little bit different of a technical course, sci-fi variety. You've got obstacles in the track, and we're off. And Sebastian says, I think I've got this down. He gets the braking right. Ben and Peter going with, lots of power-ups being used. So Peter moves to the front, and then you see he ends up blocking Ben there. So that's great technical skill by Peter. So Peter is really developing into a technical rider. And I think one of the things that probably bothers Peter about the technical courses is like what happened to him in the first race. And you really got to pay attention. And that can really feel unfortunate when you're having a good race and that happens to you. But as he develops more and more technical skill in these arenas, that will happen to him less and less. That's what we see. You can still get overexcited. We see that and all that. Ooh, Erhan. And as I say it, Erhan was doing very, very well there. It looked like he was moving up into second place and maybe going for the win. But what you see here is Peter's doing really well. Ben's doing really well. Carl's a little bit further back. Homer's a little bit further back than that. And then you've got a pretty big gap back to Mark and Sebastian. Unfortunate for Sebastian, that one crash early on. Here we can see that the map from a bit back. Now this is a very short race, 0.6 kilometers to go. Advantage Peter, as long as he doesn't overcook it here. And it's just very interesting mentally because as somebody's chasing you, as Ben is taking those risks and he's closing down that gap, it makes you want to go hard, and it can force you into a mistake. So it's easier to make a mistake in the back, obviously, because you've got to risk it in order to get there. But I think if Peter just maintains his calm here, 1 lap to go, I think he has this one locked up. Now, the only thing that could change that is Ben having a power-up, right? And, okay, we got Carl, Ben, and, Kopse goes down there. I think he was sort of in the mix, maybe a lap down, but he goes down. So I think this is really between Carl and Ben. A lot of risk, high reward here. Oh, Carl says, you know what? I've got this down, and wow, okay. He deserved the clean sweep today. Massive kudos on the power-up play there at the end that goes to Carl. Masterclass today by Carl. I know Carl often does highlights. I look forward to those. Sebastian does the same thing to get by Erhan to secure 4th position. So some magnificent racing here on Dark Matter Velo. One of my favorite courses was something we developed early on to test the gameplay dynamics on CadeSport, and you can see that CadeSport covers the whole breadth of super realistic cycling and super realistic cycling tactics, but also, hey, let's have a little fun along the way too, and jump into some of these more tactical oriented events. So congratulations today on the clean sweep by Carl. Maybe in his highlights he'll give us some pointers. It looks like everybody else could use them. Great 2nd position finish by Peter. In rounding out the podium, we've got Ben. And Ben a little out of practice maybe. Got to get back into the groove. We've got Sebastian in 4th. Now, Sebastian is Mr. Consistent. And that will move him into 2nd overall. Sort of that last pass that was made by him was important because it put him into 2nd overall for the day. Erhan a top 5, so a couple of top 5s for Erhan today, which really helps him in the points overall. I think he's probably going to end up somewhere like near 8th overall for the day. Homer in 6th position, which will drop him down a little bit. We got Mark in 7th, got Vanessa in 8th, and I'm just sort of talking as I enter these. We've got Kay in 9th. Great racing today by Kay. I imagine she's a little fatigued. I tell you what, if Kay and Homer come fresh one day, it's going to be they're going to put a big hurt on everybody with their stamina, with their endurance. So looking forward to that. And I think these are pretty much up to date. So you see Carl wins the day, 110 points. That's the first time I've seen someone score over 100 points. So again, masterclass by Carl today. Sebastian at 62.3, just a couple of positions change would have put Ben in the 3rd spot, but Ben did very well, obviously for the day. Kopse, even though lacking experience on the technical stuff, doing very well today. Great ride on Apex Mountains, out in the wind by himself for a lot of that, and so just fading a little bit at the end, I think is what hurt him. He looked to try and do the big sprint, but I think he was sort of already done on the maximal effort. Peter Castro, top 5 finish, 51.5. Definitely coming up on the technical side. Homer, 50. And I have to say, a fatigued Homer in 6th position and Kay in 7th position should start to scare everybody, because one of these days they're going to take a day off, maybe 2 days off. They're going to come in really fresh, and they're going to put the hurt on everybody. Mark, you abandoned me, but you got a top 10 finish. Congratulations on your 8th position there. Erhan from Turkey in 9th, and Pedro, even though he faded there in the last couple of events, holding on from the work that he did earlier for a top 10 finish. So great racing today, everybody. That was lots of fun. Enjoyed watching. Hope everybody else enjoyed watching. Fantastic racing, guys. Thanks for coming today.